you got to realize that whatever you're doing, you're competing with somebody. What is it that gives you an advantage over your competition? Whatever you're good at, try to be great at it. And if you're great at it, good things will happen.
Maverick Podcast.
I'm far from average. That's why I had to come sit down and chop it up with DJ Maverick. They know my name from coast to coast and even in Dallas. I use my talent when I'm faced with a challenge. Gratitude strength is my magnet. Close your eyes and imagine. If you can see it in your mind, then you can have it.
Maverick Podcast.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us. This is the Maverick Podcast. I'm your host, DJ Maverick. Today we have another rock star in the building. We have founder and operator of Roman Recordings, the one and only Trey Cotton. Welcome to the podcast.
What's up, guys?
I'm super excited before we dive into everything. For the 1% of the people out there that don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, man. I'm Trey Cotton. I founded Roman Recordings in July of last year. Roman Recordings is a audio engineering and PA rental company that can help small and local artists try to branch out and really start to make a name in the world. But yeah, it's kind of who I am, and I just want to keep doing music, man. So
yeah. Did you start as a musician first? I was telling you before we started that I saw that you were in a band, you play guitar, you told me you play a lot of instruments. So
yeah,
did that come first or what?
Yeah, I mean, so I've done music since I was probably 15 years old. I did music early on. I was in a band called First and Foremost, and then Don't Give Up the Ship. I mean, I can probably name a lot more bands and stuff. And so I've done music for a long time. And even when I wasn't in bands, I still wanted to make music. So I kind of really started honing in on how to engineer and stuff. So everyone in the world, every musician has a home studio. Mm-hmm. And so I built one. It was awesome. And I was like, I think I could do this for other musicians. I want to do this for other musicians. Yeah. So at the end of my career at Stone Cloud Brewing, I was like, I think I want to open up a studio. Well, and it wasn't even a studio. I just wanted to open up a recording company that could take it all to them. So whether it would be you want to play a live show in the parking lot, let's record that. Some of my best songs that I love are live at Red Rocks, live at Spotify sessions or whatever. So I was like, I think I can do that. And that's kind of what I wanted to start. So
yeah, that's very cool. That's an interesting model, right? Because the whole name Roman Recordings indicates that you like to go to locations, right? So I know we just did a project together. It was awesome. I really enjoyed it, right? Yeah. Shout out to Jay and the Bishops. But one of the things that I learned about you is that you enjoy tackling problems on the spot.
I mean, yeah, I mean, when we were there at Bad Granny's, there was things that even at the time of we were compacted in that spot, and Jose really needed to have levels, and so his monitor was literally on him. So we were combating that feedback constantly, and there was even things that I heard in the recording that I'm like, I want to figure that out later, because I recognize that our monitors were kind of feeding back a little bit, and so but that's part of the reason I love engineering is hearing that and going, how do I make that never happen again? Or how do I make Jose hear it to where he can hear perfect levels, but I know what I'm hearing is even better than that, if that makes sense. So.
Yeah, for sure. That's super cool because I'm kind of the opposite. I don't know if you can tell, but I like to develop systems, right? So
for sure.
I'm like, how can I set everything and everything's you can do it, you can replicate it, eliminate as much variables as possible. That's kind of my jam.
Well, I mean, and Roman Recordings actually built Narrow Stairs Studio, which is a small 2-room studio right next to Stone Cloud Brewing. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of that thing is if I ever wanted a project that I had that more all right, I want to come in and I just can get it done quickly. I know exactly where the bass needs to be. I know where the guitar needs to be. I know where the drums need to be. I've built that, but there is something to be said about the fact that if a band wants to go out and record an album in the cabin, I want to figure out a way to make that happen. I think we can create those ambiances and ambient and acoustics in that room to where it sounds great on the record, but they have an environment that really breeds that in creativity and inspiration, so.
Yeah, I think the venue almost adds a different vibe, right? So
absolutely.
If you think about Nirvana's MTV Unplugged or something like that whole the songs you've heard them a million times, but if you hear it to that album, right, Unplugged, it sounds completely different.
Absolutely. No, right? I'm right there with you. And I think that's why I've been so pushing for the live at stuff. All my friends that are creating new businesses, it's let's create like a live at your spot, you know, like whether it's a restaurant, a record shop, a coffee shop, it's like there is something there that can breed that creativity that when people look at it and see that music in that environment, they're like, wow, that feels real. That feels inviting. That feels like Bad Granny's is a cool thrift shop. But when you put music with it, there's something that breeds really cool creativity. Like that was a cool project. And those are cool shots. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, for sure. What do you think is like, I don't know. I think now the barrier to recording is super low, right? But to me, that's both a pro and a con, right? Because everybody thinks I'm just going to pick up this Focusrite and I'm good to go, right? But I think there's something to be said about actually going to a sound engineer to recording studio. I see you're getting ready. Like, you know, what do you think about that? Because it's a pro and a con, right?
I mean, people could say the same thing about me in a sense. Like, I mean, people could say that I just went out and got all the equipment and started trying to do it, and that's fair. I do think that there is something to be said about the fact that I have 20 years in the industry of music, and right, wrong, or indifferent, I feel like I have an ear for it. I feel like I've done it. I feel like I've done enough live shows. I've done enough studio recordings that I know what you need to look out for and what you don't.
Yeah.
I don't want to ever not encourage someone to go out and get a Focusrite Scarlett and start to do their own home studio, because that's how I started. But at the same time, like,
Shout out Focusrite, by the way.
yeah, like the
Nothing
great,
wrong.
great,
But I just
great
know
brand, yeah.
when people are like, "Hey, stop by the studio," it's like, you know, someone's bedroom and it's a
Yeah, it's a
Focusrite,
2i2.
right?
Yeah. So, no, go get a 2i2. It's a great interface. But I do think that there has to be that, like, when people get that stuff, it's not about the equipment, honestly. It's about learning the tricks of the trade. It's like learning how to EQ your own studio, learning how to gain level to a point that you're not too quiet and you're not too loud. Like, there is other skills involved in, and honestly, the bigger part with me is, like, I think people just trust all these crazy YouTube videos that are like, I'm an engineer, listen to my advice. And you listen to that advice, you're like, that's not correct at all. Like,
Exactly.
I don't know who allowed you to publish that. So I do think people need to make sure they're going out and doing the stuff. Like, go get your home studio, go get a Focusrite, and go get a regular, like, Behringer microphone or whatever. Just go get the lowest end stuff. Start doing it, and you'll know what you need to pick up on. If you think that your mic is too MIDI, then get a more high range mic. You know, if you think your interface isn't able to record the quality because it's only at 48 megahertz or kilohertz, then get a 96 kilohertz interface. You know what I mean? Like, but I don't think that that's not what you need to do firsthand. Like, you need to start drawings. Like, you need to try recording at the lowest grade possible to learn, how do I make myself better before I make the instrument, before I make the equipment better, before I make the computer better, before I make all the cables better? Because, friend, I can tell you that's a $10,000 investment. So.
For sure, 1,000%. But I will tell you now, like, the bar is so high, right? So when you're gonna show up, we're day trading attention, right?
Yeah.
So if you think about when you're on TikTok, when you're on Instagram, there's like a level, like a bar now where, like, things have to look professional.
For sure.
They have to sound professional.
So, like, I think that the people coming into the industry, I will say this, like, I think people coming into the industry I can tell them confidently, you can do a good engineering job for under $500. Like, it really is a lot about skill. Like, it really is knowing how to EQ on the last end. Now, good in, good out is always the engineering quote. So it's like, if you have really good microphones, like, your job is a lot easier on the back end. But I think people just need to realize that, like, they can do a really good job if they can just hone in their skills. So it's like, you don't have to pay a lot of money. You can be a good TikToker. You can be a good influencer. You can be a good engineer. You can be a good producer, whatever, with somewhat low grade equipment if you learn those skills. But you can't just rely on the equipment. You have to learn the skill. And actually, that's why I encourage people to get low end equipment, because it has to, like, hone your skills a little bit. Like, if I would have started with the RME interface and a Nev's console and all these things, like, my job would have been way easier. You know what I mean? I wouldn't have to do anything. I'd be like, hit a button, let him record. And so, like, but with Jose, like, I like that my equipment's not the best, because I have to, like, kind of, like, be for that project, there was 5 members. I was kind of like a 6th member, it felt like. You know, I had to be somewhere there. It was like interacting with the band, whereas like, all right, the drums are a little bass heavy, so let's pull those down. The vocals are mid heavy, so let's pull those down. The guitar needs more high, so let's pull those. I love that portion.
And that's where the experience comes in, right? Because another huge part is a master. And what I see a lot of people when they master, sometimes they master intentionally to be loud, just to be loud. And then also they master like for like AirPods. And to me, that kills me, right? Because there are people that enjoy high fidelity. They have good systems.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on like mastering for like, let's say Spotify, AirPods or something like that versus like legit mastering for audio quality?
Man, so it's like that's tough for me because it's like I probably do master currently where I'm at right now. I probably do master more for like the lower frequency. Like I probably master more for that Spotify frequency.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the things that I think I'm doing right now are gonna be that's how it's gonna be. Like I don't have any projects right now that are getting mastered for vinyl, for getting cut for a cool record, and that's a bummer because I want to do those projects, you know. But at the same time, it's like I think a lot of the things that I'm doing right now are gonna be like received on the internet or some, you know, lower. Like I think that's Apple Music is quite a bit bigger frequency range than Spotify, but you get what I'm saying. Like I don't have to worry about that as much. But that being said, I am taking a huge page out of the mastery book when it comes to the things I'm doing right now because I think mastering wasn't a thing a lot of engineers had to work on early on because I think that was a separate thing. And to your point earlier, with everyone in the world buying Focusrite Scarletts and being their own producers, like I think all of us now have to like be our own mastery people.
Well, now there's even AI.
Sure.
I see where there's services like, oh, we let AI master this for you for like $5.
I mean, it would be so hard to make a career out of mastering now. Like I think 20 years ago, you could be an engineer and be like, I think I'm going to make my whole career in mastering. And I think now it's like, it would be hard to sell that career unless you have a name that is like so high up there that it makes sense. But for me, when it comes to mastering, I think I'm just mastering to how I think the medium's going to be played the most. And so it's like, if I were to cut a record right now, that would be a whole different mastering process. But for a lot of things I'm doing, like I said earlier, it's like, I just want to make sure that it sounds good on the mediums that I think it'll be played on. So for me, not necessarily AirPods, but I do listen on headphones. I listen on Spotify. I listen on Apple. I listen on.
My sound check is always in the car. I don't know what it is about the car.
No. Hey, my truck is my number one sound check. But that's actually like that's early on mix stuff. You know what I mean? Like my truck is my main mix. Like that's how I know if all my levels are correct. And then I'll go through my routine, like bouncing down to all the mediums where I can hear, you know, the frequency range of the back at. So, and really like. Maybe it's naive of me early on in my audio engineering career, but I haven't heard a huge difference between bouncing down into those platforms. Like, I know that everyone really gets onto Spotify because they cut their frequencies back so much.
Yeah.
And I know that they trim it back a lot. I've seen the band like it trimmed down, but for what it's worth, like I really don't feel like I've ever heard a mix that I've done that's lost so much that I feel like the song lost its soul. But maybe when I start doing vinyl ones, I'll think differently. But for mastering stuff though, I think just making sure that it just sounds like even keel on all of them and making sure that you're really making focus on that kind of stuff. Like if you know your people are going to listen to it on their phone, like make sure it sounds good on the phone. Like with Jose, like I knew people were going to be watching on their phone while they were watching on Instagram.
For sure.
But that was a huge thing. I was like, can you hear the bass? Can you hear the drums?
Yeah.
But if you have a mix that sounds good on a phone, then you go over to the computer, it's like too bass heavy. You have to like play balance all those, you know?
And I know people listen on their AirPods. A lot of people just also listen on their phone, their speakerphone.
Yeah.
Right. And that drives me crazy. But to me, like to play devil's advocate here, let's say you record this awesome project. You never know like where that band's going to end up, or like, what if they're like, hey dude, like that recording is like what set it off. We want that to like be a historical record. We want to press it. Like what happens then? Do you still have like the master files to master it differently, or what happens then?
I mean, like, again, I'm early on in my career, so maybe when
I'm putting on your spot here.
yeah, no, and well, and say like maybe later on I have so many files that I can't say this, but I save all my stuff. Man.
Yeah.
I'm a hard drive kind of guy, so I come from a background of photography, so like I have SD cards galore, I have external hard drives galore, and so my music career is not much different. So it's like I try to save all my projects. You know, I have folders forever. So if Jose, for instance, ever came back and was like, "Hey, dude, like our versions were great.
Yeah.
So let's put a little bit more focus on them." I have all those individual tracks and waves that we can like go back on and even take a step further and master those even further. That's a big focus of mine, is that like I'm always able to multi-track and save everything else, and so like I just try to zip everything, put it in its nice little compact little folder, put it away, and then in 10 years, my thing is not even like that Jose would come back and say, "Hey, let's do something else with it." My goal is that like someday, 10 years down the road, some DJs like, "Hey, this song is a fire hit.
Yeah.
I want to have this original vocal track," and it's like, "Yeah, here it is," or whatever. Like
got,
we can
the
like some
stems for
samples.
everything?
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Okay.
so
Yeah.
I can just take all those stems and be like, "Let's do a remix."
Right.
That's tight.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I just always think about that, and it's good to know that you can go back and like if they said, "Hey, like I want to do a different remix or whatever," that's pretty cool that you have the capability to do that.
yeah, I mean, also just like that gives the ability to like, if someone just came back and was like, "I don't even need to use it. I just want to have it as a demo," but I didn't like that guitar. And you send it to me with the other guitar. Like, I just want to be that engineer that always has the ability to help them pursue what they're wanting to do.
Yeah.
I want, I mean, I want credit in a sense of like, I want to be part of stuff, but at the same time, it's like, I would love to like look at a record 20 years down the road and be like, "Yeah, I helped influence that record," even if it was just because I was like helping them through the process. You know what I mean? Like, I know how much, as a musician, I know how much it takes like a village. You know what I mean? Like, I love writing music, but like whenever I'm writing music with one other person, it's better. When it's with two other people, it's way better. Whenever it's three people, it's way, way better. When it's 5 people, it's way, 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 like
Yeah.
every time you add someone to the mix, it usually gets way better. So like, I think the reason why Jose's project at Bad Grannies was so cool is because we had like 10 badasses there that were, I like to think that I'm a badass in that sense. But like we had 10 really cool people that were just like working on a really, really cool project. Like we had a photographer like that was low key just sitting around doing awesome photography.
Right.
Like, so,
Yeah.
I mean,
don't sell yourself short, because I think another big part is that you being a musician yourself, you kind of know like, okay, what frequencies do I need to focus on? What do they need to hear in their monitor mix or whatever? I think that adds another like level, right?
I definitely try. I mean, like I'm still learning and stuff. And there was times where it was like, even with the Bad Grannies thing, like there's times where it's like, Ethan's like, "Hey, can you throw this on the monitor?" And I'm like, I know exactly what he said. I know exactly how to do it. But for whatever reason, my brain in that moment is like, "Okay, how do I do this?" And it makes me have that kind of like a, where you just don't feel like you're that imposter syndrome. And so, but no, I do agree with you. Like, I think the reason why I've been able to find an ear in engineering is like, I've been on that stage and I know what I want to hear. I know also when I'm in the audience what I want to hear. And that can be annoying to an extent because every single person in the world thinks they could be an audio engineer. They're like, "Hey, can you turn the bass up a little bit?"
Right.
But no, I think that's given me a leg up for sure. Like, I would say a lot of the bands I work with always think that I gravitate towards the guitarist, maybe because I am a guitarist, but I like all the instruments. Don't let anyone tell you to.
Yeah. So tell me, what are your thoughts on like treating the music or the stuff that you love as a business, right? Because every time I have an artist here on the pod, they want to focus on the creative stuff. They're like, "Hey, this is what I like." All this other business stuff and even the social media stuff, I don't really enjoy it.
Yeah.
Right. But I think it comes with the territory, unless you just want to do music because you love it and do it as a hobby. And there's nothing wrong with that.
With my business model right now, like if someone comes into the studio, to an extent, they're just paying me to record. And so like, I don't necessarily want to put too much weight into how they're handling their business.
Yeah.
If they are coming in and recording because they just want to record a record because it's gonna live on their shelf and that makes them feel good, then I want to be encouraging of that. If they want to come in and record a record because they feel like it's gonna be the next top 10 record, then I'm also okay with that. I'm trying not to put too much weight into too much my own opinion and that kind of stuff when people come in, because that's not what my business model is. My business model is just to engineer the music. Like, if I wanted to own a record label, which maybe one day I would want to do, then that's where I think I would want to have more weight in that kind of stuff. But I've played the business game of like what it is to be a band with Spin Cycle, the band that I'm in currently, and even with like the band that I help out with, Panhandle, and the business side of music is freaking hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. There is a rhyme and reason, but if I could tell you what it was, then I would be a billionaire, because it's so hard to figure out. So when people come into me, it's like, I just want to help make a really, really good polished product, but how they want to handle that past that, I would want to encourage and I would want to help, but I don't even have a good frame of reference of what the next move is. 2 days ago, I would have said it was make sure you're popular on TikTok, but now I don't even know if TikTok's going to be around anymore. So it's like every 5 seconds it changes. So like for me as an engineer, all I'm going to say is like, I just want to make sure that they sound as good as they want to sound. Like if they want to have a punk rock album that has a grunge sound, then I want to polish that album for them to where it sounds raw and punk rock. If they want to have like a really cool Coldplay high production album, then I want to facilitate that. But if a band comes in and is like, okay, we want to pay you to help us get famous and know what the business workings are, I'd be like, I'm not the guy. Like, I can help you guess, but I'd keep your money, because it's right now the business world is crazy, man. Like real talk. Like, I know we keep mentioning him, but there's no reason why Jose isn't doing world tours.
For
like,
sure.
I mean, that guy is
all those guys are super
absolutely.
talented.
So it's like that was one of the coolest things that I've done in a long time, and it's like those guys are just local guys, and that pisses me off a little bit. Like how I compete in a market where those guys are just local guys is crazy to me, you know? So
yeah, and it's definitely not money, right? Because if it were money, then every record executive would just throw money, and then everything that they signed would be successful, right?
Right, and I mean,
so
that's
it's not
the
money,
case. No, it's not
right?
the case. No, so it's like the record labels have to figure out the right thing, and so it's like, how do you get an Jose to a record? And I don't know that answer.
Yeah,
that's the thing that I've never figured out is, as a musician / a person who now is in the industry of music, is like, I don't know how to get people to see it. I thought it was TikTok. I thought it was Instagram. I thought it was the social media, but that's also not always the case. Like, I just, so yeah. So for me, it's like, all I want to do is focus on how do I make the best possible record for the people that hire me, whether it's live or in the studio, because it's like, every time I try to figure out the algorithm for how to make it in the music world, I'm like, I didn't figure it out, guys.
Yeah, definitely. When it comes to Roman recordings, I think your approach is a bit different, right? Because when you think about studio sessions, I always hear it's X amount of dollars, super expensive. You better be prepared. You better be rehearsed. But your approach, it almost seems like you want to be welcoming. You want to be low barrier. You want to work with all these artists that are on the up and coming, right?
Yeah, man. So it's like, I don't know, when I started this band, or we started this band called Spin Cycle, it was me and 3 other guys, like, we really struggled trying to figure out a way to record ourselves. We talked to a studio and they told us a price per song, and it was like a couple $100 per song, and we just couldn't even do that. That wasn't even fathomable in our range. And so I think when I looked at this idea of starting Roman Recordings, it's like, how can I do it where I can still make money? I can still start a company that's viable. But how can I do it that like meets them in the middle? So it's like, if a band came to me and was like, hey, we got $400 and we had 3 songs, can we do this? I would create a package that would make sense for me and them. Like, maybe that doesn't mean that we can go rent a whole Airbnb, because that would cost the whole budget. But maybe it means like borrowing a space or going to narrow stairs. But if a band hit me up and was like, hey, we have a budget of $1,500 to record an album, it's like, okay, let's go get an Airbnb for 4 days. record out there. We would have bedrooms, we'd have a kitchen, we'd have a backyard space, we'd have all this stuff that can like also kind of amplify the experience. And I think that would help the takes, help the creativity process, whatever. But I still want to do that in a way that it's like me kind of meeting them and being a part of the process. Like I don't always want to just be the guy that's like, I want $1 billion to do a thing. It's like I want to be part of the band in that process. And every time I've recorded a project, whether it be Jose, whether it be Compost Adjacent, whether it be Coat, whether it be Johnny Manchild, like I end up being the biggest fan of that project. And so it's like part of the reason why I want to do these things is like I can do this for less money because I'm going to end up hanging out with my best friends during these 4 days. Like
you would do it like no matter what, right?
Yeah.
Money,
it's like, I mean, like the money helps me make sure I pay my bills and make sure that I'm like still taking care of my own. But yeah, like
food, shelter,
yeah, exactly.
Little things like that.
But like, I can assure you, if anyone's looked at my business model, no CPAs are allowed to look because they would tell me it's bad. But, it's just meant to like pay my bills because I just want to like work with all the people. And it's like, if you're really, really, and that's why like I've really tried to build this whole like live app process. It's like, if we're making a show at Stone Cloud Brewing and it's a really small artist, but I've still recorded them, maybe they've never had an opportunity to be on Spotify, but I give them a wave that says, hey, you can put this out there in the world. Like at least if nothing else, you can put it out there so you have copyright on these lyrics and this song. Like, I just feel like there's no reason why so take a step back. Compost Adjacent, it's a local band here in Oklahoma City. They didn't have their first song out until like, I don't know, 5 months ago, 6 months ago. And I'm a big fan of them. Shout out to you guys. And I was pissed knowing that they didn't have anything out early on. And that's just crazy to me because they're too talented. And so it's like every time I hear a band and they're talented and I go to their Spotify and there's nothing there, it makes me so freaking mad. Yeah. And I immediately want to like text them and be like, let's change this tomorrow. Right. Like let's record so I don't know, man. Roaming is all about trying to make sure like I want to be doing the projects that are like amplified. Like I want to be cutting the Foo Fighter type records, the biggest, the big. But I also want to be doing the very first album of a band that in 17 years, they're like the biggest band in the world. It's like, who did their first album? It's like, oh yeah, Trey did their first album.
And now with technology, like it could be like 5 days from now. Like you don't know, right?
That's
like,
true.
The algorithm might catch it, and then
it's true. You know? Like what is a small band today could be mega level tomorrow. But that I just want to work with all the people, and I feel like it's easy to say this being a person who lives in Oklahoma City, but like I think we have really, 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 really cool bands here. Yeah. We've got really cool venues. Shout out to like some of the even local ones like Res Head and like 89th Street and all these things. Like
I love Tower, dude.
Tower's like really, really, really,
really
good.
Cool.
No, Tower's really good. Pony Boy's really good. What they're doing at the parking lot at Stone Cloud, I helped with that, so that's why I'm shouting that one out. But
shout out.
But like, no, we have really, really cool venues here, and so I want us to keep that and really cool bands here. So it's like I know we have something really special here, and just to think that we have some of our lower musicians that aren't able to have that kind of like barrier that they're not able to get recorded or they don't have a way to get on Spotify or whatever. It's like, let me help with that. Like, I'm to the point where I want to like create a channel where it's like either Roman Recordings or Narrow Stairs has like its own profile on Spotify where it's like you don't have a way to like publish your own stuff because you can't pay for it. Like, let me help you. Like, cool. I will give you the royalties. Like, we'll figure this out. But like, I love listening to stuff on Spotify. I hate Spotify as what it is, but like as a person who's also a consumer, I love it. So it's like, we got to get a way to listen to that. So it's like, no one's going to go to, app. I mean, people go to Apple Music and Google Music. I get that. But like, they're not going to like websites. They're not going to other things. So it's like, let's get you on Spotify. Let's make sure that you're on the main medium. So
yeah, I would say OKC for sure, underrated. Like even to this day, when I tell people about the Flaming Lips and they're from OKC, they never know that they're from OKC till this day. Like,
I know.
They've been around forever and people still don't know.
Also, it's crazy, dude. Like, AJ is going on tour with.
Yeah. He said he's going to like Japan or something, right? That's crazy. Shout out
Like,
to him.
yeah, dude, like we gotta work with cool people here.
Yeah.
That was cool. So yeah, we're spoiled here in OKC. We have some really, really talented people.
Yeah, for sure. Tell me about your musical journey, right? So you mentioned a few bands here, but like when did you figure out that music was like your thing? Did you stumble upon that? Did you have influences? Is it a family business? You tell me.
I mean, if my mom or dad are listening, sorry for you guys, but yeah, it's definitely not a family business. They're not musically talented at all. They love the radio and they love good music. So that's probably, I grew up listening to really, really good music.
Okay.
And lots of nights sitting around listening to old albums and stuff, like getting turned on to Beatles and Rolling Stones, you know, at an early age. Probably when I was in like late middle school, I had the idea that I wanted to try to be a musician. So like I got like a really cheap Squire guitar and learned how to play it. And through high school, I kind of like, you know, just played around, understood the dynamics of what a guitar was and whatever. But for the most part, I think I didn't really start being in a band until like at the very end of my senior year, maybe going into my freshman year of college. But yeah, I don't know when I saw myself actually doing musician, even going into my first band, I think it was just like, oh, this is just fun.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until like probably I don't think it was before then, but I think it was probably the middle of my first band, first and foremost, that I was like, oh, maybe I actually want to be a musician. So I did that for a while. We took the band way more seriously. I tried to start really honing in on guitar, and I dropped out of that band, joined a band called Don't Give Up the Ship, started trying to learn some more stuff, and then randomly I left Wichita, Kansas, where I'm from. Those are the two bands where those are from, and so I'm from Wichita, Kansas originally, and I had left, and so when I left and came down here to OKC, I just didn't play in a band for a while. I didn't do music. I did music, but you know, you're just playing in your bedroom. You're like, ding, ding, ding. And so it wasn't until I got the job at Stone Cloud Brewing, where a couple of the guys in the back were like, hey, we play instruments. And it's like, oh, what do you play? They're like, we don't really, I mean, we know what they are, but we're not really that good at it. Let's just all like kind of like conjumble up and make this mess of music. And so we all kind of like came in and finally picked out our instruments, and some of them moved from vocals to drums. Some of them moved from bass to guitar and vice versa.
Wow.
But we kind of created this band, and it was called Turban Mash, and we started up, and it was a lot of fun, and it kind of reminded me that I like loved playing music live. And so from that, a couple of the guys from that band and I started another band called Spin Cycle, which is currently still going on. And I think I just, at this point now, it's more about playing live for me. It's like, I don't really care about, I love writing good music, and I love that feeling of it, but I think for me, it's like I just really love interacting with the crowd when I'm playing. Like,
that adrenaline that you feel when you're on stage, and then the audience, you can almost like feel it, right?
Even like, I think if you would have talked to me 10 years ago, and if you would ask me like, hey Trey, would you ever play in a cover band? I'd be like, F no, that's stupid. It's only about creativity. It's only about making your own stuff. Now I'm like, yeah, I think I would, because like it's so much fun. Like just me belting out like some terrible Modest Mouse song, or not that Modest Mouse is bad. I love that band. I'm just saying I would sing it bad, but but like belting out some terrible rendition of a song, but everyone is just getting into it because they know it too. And that's like, I've done a couple audio engineering gigs now where I'm doing mixing for cover bands. And when you watch an audience interact with the cover band, you're like, I get it. I really do get it.
If you're good, right? Because if you're doing a cover, it could be really bad
for sure,
or really good. There's like no in between.
I've gotten to see some really good cover bands, thank good, or really polished cover bands. Like you can only be as good as the original. You know what I mean? So
yeah, definitely. So
right now,
I think you have an interesting story with like your social media handle and maybe a tattoo, right? So tell me about that.
Yeah, man. Wow. So yeah, my social media handle is Lost to Win. I created that probably in 2017. And then, it's all kind of like described off this tattoo. So it's CCXEVII. So it's the Roman numeral of 297. And It's the highest number my scale ever got. So I used
way.
to, I weighed over 300 pounds. I don't know if I didn't ever weigh myself.
Yeah.
Once I saw 297, I
You're like,
did
I don't
stuff.
want to know.
Yeah, I don't want to know anymore. But I know it was at least 297. But after that, I kind of put the brakes on and
Did you have like a health scare or something, or is it just like
no, I mean,
you,
I
or-
think the health scare was 297. You know, like honestly,
Just
like
seeing it,
yeah,
yeah.
like just seeing that number was like,
Yeah.
fuck.
'Cause sometimes people wait until like they have to go to the hospital or a doctor or whatever.
Nothing
right?
like that for me, thank goodness. But yeah, I think I just saw the big number and I was just decided it was time. And yeah, I just, you know, through calories in, calories out, just like try to lower the intake and
Yeah.
walk more, run more. And luckily what's cool is like a lot of people always ask me like, so if you know me at all, you know that I love like biking and running. So a lot of people were always like, oh, I guess running and biking helped you lose weight. And it was
Mhm.
actually like vice versa. It was like, I started biking and running because I lost the weight. You know what I mean? Like
so you
I don't
couldn't
feel
even
like
do it
I don't
before?
feel like I could have done it correctly, or at least not like comfortably. You know, it was like
Yeah.
I think the reason I was able to get on a bike was because I was finally in a condition that I was like, yeah, I can get on a bike. Because I think if I would have got on a bike at 297,
Yeah.
or bike, that bike would have just crumbled, dude. It
Right,
would have
yeah.
just fallen apart.
And the thing is like it's gradual, right? So I've definitely experienced where I've gained weight. You don't really notice until like one day you're like, how did I get here?
Yeah.
And it's almost like it's real easy to like get up there, but to try to lose it, super difficult, right? So how did you go about that?
Well, I mean, like, so it's crazy because like to get it to like when I saw 297, it was shocker because it was a gradual thing, right?
Mhm.
Like, I guess my mind didn't think I was gaining weight,
Yeah.
even though I was stepping on the scale and seeing the number go up. But it was so gradual that I guess it didn't really make sense until I was like, oh, I'm about to hit a number that is real.
So
That's
it's
a
like
whole
you're
different
like, I don't
number.
want to hit the 300.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So it's like, but in the same vein though, it's like because of that gradual of going up, losing weight was hard at first because it was so gradual going down. Because at first you're like, am I even doing anything? Like, you know, 297 to 300 doesn't seem like a lot, but
Yeah.
297 to 294 also doesn't seem like a lot. I want one of those versus the other. You know what I mean? So like, it's just trying to tell your brain, it's like, it may not be 297 to 145
Yeah.
where I want to be, but it's trending. And like, I guess I kind of had to look at so like, you know, this last time I tried to, well, when I hit 297 was not the first time I tried to lose weight.
Okay.
I've tried to do keto before and I try to do all these things and I try to whatever. But I think that last time I finally looked at it like almost like a statistical analysis problem. Like
Mm.
if I can just make this graph be downward.
Yeah.
Downward. Like it doesn't even matter how sharp the angle is as long as it's just downward. And that reframed everything to where it was like just consistent loss made sense. And after a year and a half, I was at 145 and I was like, all right, that's kind of
That's
cool.
fast, like a year and a half. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure it was like not easy, but that's fast to lose that amount of weight, right?
I mean, it definitely didn't feel fast. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
after it was, you know, it was 18 months, you know, it felt
Mhm.
like it was a long time when it consider that. But yeah, I think it was like 8 pounds a month or 6 pounds a month. I don't know.
Wow,
It was
that's
quite a
awesome.
bit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it was enough that it felt like every time I would like look at the calendar, I'd be like, I'm making progress. Like it was just enough that I could see the difference, you know? So
Yeah. Would you say that being a musician is kind of like what led you there? Because to me, when I go DJ afterwards, like you're hungry and like the options aren't the healthiest, right? So to me, I see a correlation with a lot of musicians, DJs, that sort of thing.
yeah.
Eating late night. Right?
So yeah, I thought you were alluding to like, does the musician help me lose weight? And I was
No,
actually
no.
going to be like, no, actually the
No,
opposite.
no.
Well, so it's like if I were a touring musician, I think you could be skinny because like even though you're eating McDonald's every night, you're also like you're not eating it all during the day. You're pretty much poor because you can't afford anything. So it's like you're living a different lifestyle.
Mhm.
But to your point though, like I think if you have a musician's mindset when you're eating, yeah, you're eating a bunch of fast food. You're eating at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Also,
Never good options. It's
never-
always like
yeah, no, and-
unhealthy.
And
right?
I mean, I don't know how many band practices I've had that are just like us drinking 3 or 4 Miller Lights,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
and then eating Taco Bell, you know, so it's,
Yep.
it adds up fast.
Yeah.
So yeah, the musician lifestyle didn't help. I wouldn't say that it was the main caveat or the main like thing,
Mhm.
the culprit. There you go. But it definitely taught me a lot of I mean, I learned a lot of really fulfilling dollar menu meals off
Yeah.
of McDonald's and Taco Bell, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, congrats on that. Because when I was like researching everything for the pod, I saw that you were into biking and stuff like that. But then I noticed like, oh wow, like this guy like lost a lot of weight. Like,
yeah.
and now like of course if somebody goes to your social media, they're like, well, of course he's into biking. He does all this stuff outdoors. Of course, it's easy for him to keep the weight off.
No, man. I'm back to quite the opposite. Like I feel like I struggle with keeping the weight off more easily now. Especially like, I mean, dude, like I don't know, like with stress and life and stuff,
Yeah.
it's way easier. I feel like I built way more habits when I was overweight and not active than what I've done in the last 2 years. Like
Mhm.
it's way easier to fall back on inactivity and stuff. So, I mean, it's definitely I feel like it's a conscious choice to an extent of just trying to make sure that I'm like keeping at it. But, you know, I mean, up until last September, I was taproom manager of a brewery. So it was like I was drinking beer all the time. And
Mhm.
like I never got up to anywhere high again, but drinking beer all the time, it's hard to keep
Yeah,
weight off
for
when
sure.
you're drinking Stone
Yeah.
Cloud Light every day. So
Yeah, no, congrats on that. And I think the tattoo too, it's kind of like a motivation because you don't want to go over the
Hell
number.
no!
So it's
Yeah,
like
no,
that's a
it's like-
reminder, like, hey, like let's keep it there,
Right.
never again.
yeah,
right?
yeah. If I had this and I was still and I got big again, people would be
Yeah.
like, "What's that?" It's like I don't
Yeah.
want to talk about it. Yeah,
exactly.
so I got mixed. I got this as a make sure I didn't go
Yeah.
back. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. So tell me, out of all your music, your recordings, everything, what's been sort of the most memorable thing that has come out of it? Because I'm sure you've got to work with a lot of cool people, a lot of cool experiences. What's been like probably the favorite thing that has come out of it?
Man, I mean, as of recently, like, I mean, there's a lot of cool things, and I mean, like, honestly, the Stone Cloud Summer Series that we just did over at Stone Cloud was really, really cool. It was a cool parking lot series that just got some like local musicians off the ground. I mean, Jose did one. I had Johnny Manchild out at one point. I think we had Composted Jason out. But we also did a really cool Christmas series over at Good for a Few.
I saw that. That was
Yeah,
cool.
that was really cool. We got to have some really cool musicians out there. Obviously, the Jose one over at Mad Granny's. Like, honestly, what I've learned is that the last project I did is usually my most favorite.
Okay.
And then the next one I do is
Yeah.
gonna be my most favorite. Like, I love working with all the people, and every time someone like links up with me, I just get to feel so involved. And I think that involvement makes me feel so connected to it and just so like a part of it. Like, I don't know, like, I know we've talked about it 1,000 times, so I didn't want to just say the Jose one at Bad Granny's, but at the same time, it was like, you know, that was the last one, the last big project I got to do, and it was really freaking cool, man. It was just like, I just really I love getting to see musicians in their element when they get a vibe. Like, there were more times in that filming than I was like, where I was like having my headphones on and I was vibing to the music and I had my eyes shut than I was actually working. And that's cool to think about. Like, when I listen back on it, I'm like, yeah, I wasn't even like paying attention to here. I was literally just vibing to the music here. Yeah. So, and that's the same way I felt with like whenever I was listening to Amy at Good for a Few. She had this really cool Frank Sinatra's rendition of a song and of a Christmas song, and it was like awesome. Like, every time I get to work with these awesome local musicians, it's like I don't know. I feel so connected with the scene, and as someone who's not from OKC, I guess it just makes me feel more part of OKC. Like, I'm really trying to like find my own identity in this local scene, and I hype it up so much, so I kind of want to feel part of it. And so I guess with all these projects recently, I just finally get to feel like it's like I'm with it. You know what I mean? It's like I used to watch the videos on Instagram and I'd see Jose playing at Bad Granny's, and be like, oh, that's cool. And now I look at it and I'm like, I was there. You know,
Yeah,
it's
for
like
sure.
this is cool, man. So,
Yeah.
so if you want to be a project, you'll be my new favorite project.
Yeah.
So,
No,
yeah. So,
hearing you say all that, it just lets me know that your heart's in the right place, right? And it's almost like you're trying to like one up every project, which is cool. It's just
absolutely.
like it keeps that drive alive, that ambition alive, right? The creativity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fun fact, if you watch a project and you're like, oh, I want to do that, I'm going to make sure it's better than the last one we did. So I'm always going to, I want it to be cooler. Or if nothing else, I'm going to make my brain think it's cooler.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I love on what I'm moving on. So like, I want to vibe with it. And that's also what's fun is like, sometimes I work with these musicians that have like genres that I'm not really like into. And by the end of it, I'm like, I think I like Red Dirt. Yeah. I think I really like Red Dirt now.
Yeah.
Like, so,
Speaking of which, if I pull up your playlist, who's going to be on your playlist? Don't worry, nobody's watching. It's a safe space. So if it's Britney Spears, it's all good.
I mean, some Britney Spears. No, I mean, if I had a playlist right now, I would probably have some King Giz. They're definitely a top favorite. Probably some psychedelic Porn Crumpets.
Okay.
They're a real weird Australian band, but they're really, really freaking good.
Mhm.
Modest Mouse is like one of my favorite bands. The Shins. I can't get enough of Ben Gibbard and Death Cab. And then as far as like maybe some local stuff, shout out to my guys at Major Good. I really, really love Patrick Sullivan's voice. And I really like their stuff they're doing out there. Obviously I love Compost Adjacent. I've said enough about you, Jose. So
Yeah,
you
shout out
don't
to
get
him.
you don't get any more shout outs from me, but
Yeah.
obviously I love Jose, but yeah, man, I think we have a lot of talent here. I just like the kind of the indie, more like psychedelic rock scene.
Mhm.
If I were to, that's my playlist. Just vibey music. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about favorite Tiny Desk? You know, we did this project and a lot of comparisons that's come out of it. We're like, hey, how can I get on your Tiny Desk? Like I keep getting that. So
Okay.
favorite Tiny Desk for
Okay.
you.
Woo. Okay. So All J's Tiny Desk is so good.
Okay. Yeah.
They make a mistake and he plays it off pretty well. I really like his. Death Cab's Tiny Desk was very, very good. Way more like, he has more piano than like, I don't know, it's really cool.
Mhm.
And then probably Horse Feathers.
Okay.
Horse Feathers has a really, really good Tiny Desk. I don't know why, but it's just 3 members, or it's like a acoustic guitar, violin, and mandolin, I think. But God, it's just gorgeous. Everyone's
Yeah.
playing so cohesively. It's really, really good.
Yeah. For me, it'd be like Mac Miller. I don't know if you like Mac
Mac
Miller.
Miller's is really
It's
good.
up
Obviously,
there.
it's up there.
Yeah.
That's like also like pretty much like renowned as like one of the
Mhm.
best ones.
Dua Lipa. That's one of my favorite. I think
Okay.
there for a while she had like the record of like most views.
Oh,
for
really?
Tiny Desk. Yeah.
What's the Matt or Anderson .Paak.
Okay.
I guess I think
Yeah,
at
that
one
was
point
cool.
I think at one point his was
Yeah.
the most viewed one, but yeah. Also Punch Brothers. You've never heard of Punch Brothers?
Okay.
Their Tiny Desk is also, I don't know, man. Tiny Desk, that engineer is like obviously one of my idols. Like he clearly knows what he's doing. He has everything so good. To the point where I just watched an Idols Tiny Desk, and the lead singer from Idols is literally moving the mic like this. And somehow it works. And I'm like, I know as an engineer, you're like, dude, just
Oh,
stay
man.
on the mic. Just like
Yeah.
quit moving around.
Yeah, definitely. So for me, I think, you know, everything's changing, but where would you say, where's music headed? You know, next 5, 10 years, where do you think it's headed? A lot of people say AI is going to be a big part, but I don't mean, to me, you can't replace like that human element, especially that swing, right? That magical swing. It's like, to me, you can't replicate that.
I'm nervous. If I'm being honest. Like I just got into a career where I'm all in on music, and there is part of me that fears that like AI will take over. There's too many things that I've seen that are AI influenced, and I'm like, well, that sucks, man. No, that's good. That's pretty freaking good. What I will say is that I think what you call the swing, I think is that influence that artists have to put into it. So like AI will never be able to create that. So like whether it's the next thing, they're going to create that. AI can't create that on its own. That makes sense. So it's like right now AI is creating off of what's been done for the last 100 and some odd years.
Mm-hmm.
But an artist that's as talented as Dua Lipa, they can create that swing. Does that make sense? Like they can create that next, like, okay, well, this is where traditions are. Here's the next cool thing. And then AI will have to pick up on that. So I think that artists will still be able to always be ahead of the curve, but AI is going to make it hard for everyone else.
Yeah. I mean, it's doing cool stuff, right? Like I think like Randy Travis was able to do an album, right? Like he's not able to sing anymore, but he did one because of AI basically.
Yeah.
So it does some cool stuff, but to me, like it's almost like a double-edged sword where it's like, okay, I still want humans doing like art, creativity, like that's who we are, right?
I mean, look, I'm an audio engineer. You have a podcast. I bet both of us use AI sometimes, and I know I do. Like I admit to my people, like I hate AI, but I do use it. I mean, it's a tool, so it's like there are times where it's like, could I take an audio file and get rid of a background vocal thing that I don't want by myself? Yes. Could AI do it in half a second?
Right.
Yes. Yes, it can. And so it's like, so I mean, like I don't want to I can't hate on AI to the point where I say I don't use it. I do, but I also don't want to make it sound like it's gonna take over. Like it's gonna do a lot for it.
Yeah.
And it's gonna make a big prominence, but I don't think it's gonna be able to always stay ahead of the curve. Artists will always be able to be better than best AI because they're gonna be more creative than them. Like AI always has a limit to its creativity. In the human brain, thank goodness, because of probably psychedelics and other drugs, have more capacity. I don't know, so anyway.
Yeah, definitely. I want to thank you for your time. Before we sign off, I want to give you the stage, plug in all your stuff.
Yeah.
Where can people find you, both like as a musician and then also if they want to work with you?
Yeah, man. So, I mean, Trey, find me at Lost to Win or Roaming Recordings on Instagram. Obviously, I'm recording a lot of artists right now. You can also find us, Spin Cycle or Panhandle are going to be doing shows. So if you come out to one of our shows, I'll be there. You can come say hi. But if you're a musician and you are wondering how to figure out how to record or whatever, definitely come find me. I have a studio at Narrow Stairs. And yeah, we can record you where you're at, but I just want to record all the people of Oklahoma City. So
love that. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the super talented Trey Cotton on the Maverick Podcast. In dreams, we trust.